Hudnall Show, coming to you from our studios right here in exciting El Paso, Texas, gateway to the Old West and the most haunted city in the country. Well, today's February the 18th, 49th day of the year. 316 days remain to the year's over with. Holidays and observances. It is not. Now that I've got the peanut gallery calmed down, it's National Drink Wine Day. Raise your glass and enjoy. Thumb Appreciation Day. National Battery Day. How much more difficult would life be without batteries that work? National Eat Ice Cream for Breakfast Day. National Crab Stuffed Flounder Day. Pluto Day. And I mean the planet, not the dog. Cow milked while flying in an airplane day. That's one thing I've not done. Real Bread Week. Cancer Prevention Action Week. Love Teaching Week. National Entrepreneurship Week. Through with the chew. Alzheimer's Disease Dementia Care Staff Education Week. Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy Awareness Week. Belle Nolly Festival. That's from the island of Lombok. It's a joyful celebration. Draws crowds to the beach where people gather at dawn, waiting for the arrival of the colorful sea worms called Nale, N-Y-A-L-E. And it's said that the sighting of these glowing creatures is magical. Fills the air with excitement and anticipation. All in all, it's one of the better celebrations that I've come across. Future Farmers of America Week. Venice Carnival. Build a Better Trade Show Image Week. National Pancake Week. Bake mine chocolate. I'm in favor of that. National Green Week. Hockey Week across America. Bird Health Awareness Week. Gotta have healthy birds. National Engineers Week. Brotherhood and Sisterhood Week. National Nest Box Week. If you want more birds to come into your yard, build them some cozy little homes. And National Condom Week. Years ago when I was teaching, everybody left for lunch and went to McDonald's and places like that. And this one young lady who was a member of one of our more active religious cults came back just madder than an old wet hen. I said, "What's the matter?" She said she had never been so insulted. She went in this restaurant, fast food restaurant, and it had a sign advertising free condiments. And why would sex have anything to do with a fast food restaurant? She was going to protest, and she was going to get all her people active. And I said, spell what the sign said, and she did. I said, condiment is mustard and mayonnaise and ketchup and things like that. Has nothing to do with condoms. And she was just dumbfounded. Never heard of such a thing. But that fits in line with National Condom Week. Take Your Family to School Week. Famous people born on this date. John Travolta. Vanna White. Dr. Dre. Yoko Ono. Gary Ridgway. February 18th is part of International Vegan Cuisine Month. National Heart Month. National Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. National Snack Food Month. Spay and Neuter Awareness Month. And I'm talking about pets, not people. National African American Read-In. National Children's Dental Health Month. Human Relations Month. Feline Fixed by 5 Month. National Macadamia Nut Month. Exotic, and it may be erotic, Vegetables and Star Fruit Month. Berry Fresh Month. National Therapeutic Recreation Month. Marijuana Awareness Month. National Goat Yoga Month. You haven't lived till you've done yoga with a goat. Financial Aid Awareness Month, National End a Broken Heart Month, Adopt a Rescued Rabbit Month, National Wedding Month, Canned Food Month, North American Inclusion Month, National Black History Month, Renaissance Awareness Month, Renaissance of the Heart Month, Pull Yourself Off the Wall Month, Spiritual Teachers Month, National Senior Independence Month, National Laugh Friendly Month, National Enrolled Agents Month, National Care About Your Indoor Air Month, International Boost Self-Esteem Month, Free Open Source Software Month, From Africa to Virginia Month, National Sweet Potato Month, National Avocado and Banana Month, Fabulous Florida Strawberry Month, National Cancer Prevention Month, Cholangiocarcinoma Awareness Month, Spunky Old Broads Month, National Blobbuster Month, Ethnic Equality Month, National Cat Health Month, Humpback Whale Awareness Month, Dog Training Education Month, Declutter for a Cause Month, National Prevent a Litter Month, Creative Romance Month, and Affair to Remember Month, National Women Inventors Month, National Embroidery Month, Youth Leadership Month, Haiku Writing Month, Jobs and Golf Month, Love the Bus Month, Potato Lovers Month, Celebration of Chocolate Month, Barley Month, Wise Healthcare Consumer Month, National Self-Check Month, National Condom Month, Pet Dental Health Month, National Parent Leadership Month, Relationship Wellness Month, National Grapefruit Month, Low Vision Awareness Month, National Fasting Month, Return Shopping Carts to the Supermarket Month, Great American Pie Month, National Cherry Month, National Bake for Family Fun Month, National Bird Feeding Month, National Hot Breakfast Month, National Library Lovers Month, and Harley Quinn Month. All kinds of things being celebrated in February. In 3102 BC, on this date, Kali Yuga, the fourth and final yuga of Hinduism, starts with the death of Krishna. 1229 AD, the Sixth Crusade. Frederick II, a Roman emperor, signs a 10-year truce with Al-Kamil, regaining Jerusalem, Nazareth, and Bethlehem with neither military engagements nor support from the papacy. See, the Pope used the Crusades as a way to get rid of folks that bothered him. 1268, the Battle of Weissenberg is fought between the Livonian Order and the Davman of Pskov. 1332, Amdusayan I, Emperor of Ethiopia, begins his campaigns in the southern Muslim provinces. And in 1478, on this date, George, Duke of Clarence, convicted of treason against his older brother Henry IV, who was my ancestor, is executed in private at the Tower of London. 1637, 80 Years' War. Off the coast of Cornwall, England, a Spanish fleet intercepts an important Anglo-Dutch merchant convoy of 44 ships escorted by 6 warships. Destroyed or captured 20 of them. 1735, the ballad opera called Flora, or Hob and the Well, went down in history as the first opera of any kind to be produced in North America. That was done in Charleston, South Carolina, where clearly they had too much time on their hands. 1781, Fourth Anglo-Dutch War. Captain Thomas Shirley opens his expedition against Dutch colonial outposts on the Gold Coast of Africa. That's the present-day Ghana, by the way. 1791, Congress passes a law admitting the state of Vermont to the Union, effective March 4th. After that state had existed for 14 years as a de facto independent, largely unrecognized state. 1797, French Revolutionary War. Sir Ralph Abercrombie and a fleet of 18 British warships invade Trinidad. 1814, Napoleonic Wars. The Battle of Montereau was on this date. 1861, in Montgomery, Alabama, Jefferson Davis is inaugurated as the provisional president of the Confederate States of America. 1861, with Italian unification almost complete, Victor Emmanuel II of Piedmont, Savoy, and Sardinia assumes the title of King of Italy. 1873, Bulgarian revolutionary leader Vasil Levski is executed by hanging in Sofia by the Ottoman authorities. 1878, John Tunstall is murdered by outlaw Jesse Evans, sparking the Lincoln County War in Lincoln County, New Mexico. As I remember, Tunstall was a English-born rancher and merchant in Lincoln County, New Mexico. He competed with the Irish Catholic merchants and lawmen and politicians around the town of Lincoln and the county. He was a member of the Republican Party, hoping to unseat the Irish and make a fortune as the county's new boss. And he was also the first man killed in what became known as the Lincoln County War. That was an economic and political conflict that resulted in an armed warfare between rival gangs of cowboys and the ranchers, lawmen, and politicians who gave the orders. Not much different than today. 1865, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain is published in the United States on this date. 1900, Second Boer War. Imperial forces suffered their worst single-day loss of life on Bloody Sunday. It was the first day of the Battle of Paardeberg. 1906, Edouard de Lavalier forms the Belgian Olympic Committee in Brussels. 1911, the first official flight with airmail takes place from Allahabad, United Provinces, British India, which is now India, when André Péquet, a 23-year-old pilot, delivered 6,500 letters to Digne, which is about 6.2 miles away from where he took off. But it was still airmail. 1915 U-boat campaign. The Imperial German Navy institutes unrestricted submarine warfare in the waters around Great Britain and Ireland. 1930, while studying photographs taken in January, Clyde Tombaugh discovers Pluto, the planet, not the dog. Also in 1930, Elm Farm Ollie becomes the first cow to fly in a fixed-wing aircraft and also the first cow to be milked in an aircraft. Now, why somebody would put a cow on a plane and then go further to even milk them is anybody's guess, but go figure. In 1932, the Empire of Japan creates the independent state of Manchukuo, the obsolete Chinese name for Manchuria, free from the Republic of China, and installed former Chinese Emperor Aisin Yero Puyi as the chief executive of the state. So he's one of the few people to be emperor twice of two different countries. 1938, the Second Sino-Japanese War. During the Nanking Massacre, the Nanking Safety Zone International Committee is renamed Nanking International Rescue Committee, and the safety zone in place for refugees literally falls apart. 1942, World War II. Imperial Japanese Army begins the systematic extermination of perceived hostile elements among the Chinese in Singapore. 1943, World War II. The Nazis arrest the members of the White Rose Movement. The White Rose Movement, for those who are not familiar with, is a nonviolent intellectual resistance group in Nazi Germany. Is led by 5 students and 1 professor at the University of Munich. Willy Graf, Kurt Huber, Christoph Probst, Alexander Chamarel, Hans Scholl, and Sophie Scholl were the members of that student group. It conducted an anonymous leaflet and graffiti campaign that called for active opposition to the Nazi regime. Activity started in Munich on June 27, 1942, ended with the arrest of the group by the Gestapo February 18, 1943. And they, as well as other members, supporters of the group who carried on distributing the pamphlets, faced show trials by the Nazi People's Court. A lot of them were imprisoned and some were executed. Nazis did not play around. 1943, World War II. Joseph Goebbels delivers his Sportpalast speech. 1946, sailors of the Royal Indian Navy mutiny in Bombay Harbor. From there, the action spreads throughout the provinces of British India, involving 78 ships, 20 shore establishments, and 20,000 sailors. 1947, First Indochina War. The French gained complete control of Hanoi after forcing the Vietnam to withdraw to the mountains. 1954, the first Church of Scientology is established in Los Angeles. 1955, Operation Teapot. Teapot test shot WASP successfully detonated at the Nevada test site with a yield of 1.2 kilotons. WASP was the first of 14 shots in the Teapot series. 1957. Kenyan rebel leader Dedan Kimathi is executed by the British colonial government. Also in 1957 on this date, Walter James Bolton becomes the last person legally executed in New Zealand. 1965, the Gambia becomes independent from the United Kingdom. 1970, the Chicago 7 are found not guilty conspiring to incite riots at the 1968 Democratic National Convention. 1972, the California Supreme Court in the case of People v. Anderson invalidates the state's death penalty and commutes the sentences of all death row inmates to life imprisonment. Of course, they didn't have to foot the bill for keeping them locked up for life. 1977, the Xinjiang 61st Regiment farm fire started during Chinese New Year when a firecracker ignited Memorial Wreaths at the Lake Mao Zedong, killing 694 personnel. Well, remains the deadliest fireworks accident in the world. 1977, 1,000 armed soldiers raid Kalakuta Republic, the commune of Nigerian singer Fela Kuti, leading to the death of Funmilayo Anikulapo Kuti. 1977, a Space Shuttle Enterprise test vehicle was carried on its maiden flight on top of a Boeing 747. 1979, Richard Petty wins the then-record 6th Daytona 500 after leaders Donnie Allison and Cale Yarborough crash on the final lap of the first NASCAR race televised live flag-to-flag. And this last NASCAR race, President Trump and his granddaughter made the first lap. 1983, 13 people die and one seriously injured in the Waimea massacre in Seattle, said to be the largest robbery-motivated mass murder in U.S. history. The Waimea massacre was a mass shooting that occurred during the night of February 18th in the Waimea Gambling Club at the Louisa Hotel in Seattle, Washington. 14 people were tied up, robbed, and shot by 3 gunmen. 22-year-old Kwan Fai Willie Mock, 20-year-old Quinn Ken Benjamin Ning, and 25-year-old Wai Choi Tony Ning. 13 of the victims died, but 61-year-old Wai Yak Chen, a famous Navy sailor and pie gold dealer at the Waimea, survived to testify against the 3 at the separate high-profile trials held between 1983 and 1985. Mark and Benjamin Ing were both given life imprisonment after Mock's initial death sentence was overturned in 1988. Tony Ning got a 30-year sentence, serving 28 years before he was released and deported to his native Hong Kong in 2014. It remains the deadliest mass murder in the history of Washington State. (1991), the IRA explodes bombs in the early morning at Paddington Station and Victoria Station in London. 2001, FBI agent Robert Hansen is arrested for spying for the Soviet Union. He's ultimately convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. 2001, Sandpit conflict. Inter-ethnic violence between the Dayaks and Madurese breaks out in Sandpit, central Kalimantan, Indonesia, ultimately resulting in more than 500 deaths and 100,000 Madurese displaced from their homes. 2003, 192 people die when an arsonist sets fire to a subway train in Daegu, South Korea. 2004, up to 295 people, 182 of which are rescue workers, died near Nishapur, Iran, when a runaway freight train carrying sulfur, petrol, and fertilizer catches fire and explodes. 2010, WikiLeaks publishes the first of hundreds of thousands of classified documents disclosed by the soldier now known as Chelsea Manning. 2013, armed robbers steal a haul of diamonds worth $50 million during a raid at Brussels airport in Belgium. 2014, at least 76 people are killed and hundreds are injured in clashes between the riot police and demonstrators in Kiev, Ukraine. 2018, Iran Azman Airlines Flight 3704 crashes in the Dina subrange in the Zagros Mountains of Iran. 66 people die. And in 2021, Perseverance, a Mars rover designed to explore Jezero crater on Mars as part of NASA's Mars 2020 mission, lands successfully. All right. That ends our little history segment. Got a few news stories I want to give you. The Karen Levitt, who is the press secretary for President Trump, says that Elon Musk and his Doge team are doing what Democrats promised to do for decades, cutting spending. She even pointed back to the words of Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, who both promised to do that. And basically called the Democrats, who were just so up in arms. I mean, they're just so torn up that the $50 million for condoms in Gaza got stopped. They need those condoms in Gaza. There was a Delta plane that landed in Canada that erupted into a fireball and flipped upside down. All 80 people on board the flight, which came from Minneapolis, survived the crash landing, but 3 are critically hurt, including a child. Another video that several videos came out of this. One shows himself while climbing out of the overturned aircraft known to the snow-covered runway. In an update this morning, Delta Airlines said 21 injured passengers were initially transported to local hospitals. That's up from 18 people that were transported Monday night. Regional paramedic service said that 3 people, including a child, suffered critical but not life-threatening injuries. It was Delta Connection Flight 4819, operated by Endeavor Air, involved in a single aircraft accident. The photographs showed that the aircraft had its tail cut off and belly up in the snow. That was before high winds and drifting snow prompted flight delays and cancellations at Pearson Airport. The other passenger described the moment. He said everything just kind of went sideways. One minute you're landing, waiting to see your friends and your people, and next minute you're physically upside down. A lot of folks thought it was amazing they were still alive. James Carville, an activist for the Democratic Party, told Democrats to just play possum as nationwide protests are carrying on against Trump and his budget cutting. A major agency, Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Refugee Resettlement, has spent over $10 billion in grants to migrants and refugees. In 2021, it spent $2.4 billion in grants. It's freebie money, folks. 2022, $3.4 billion. $10 billion in 2023 before dropping to $4.2 billion in 2024. Now, you might wonder what this money's for. Help for migrants to buy cars and homes. Another gave out business and personal loans. Other programs gave out legal aid and cultural orientation. So we're going to hurt the American taxpayer in order to take care of people who break the law to come here. I'm sure if positions were reversed and we showed up in another country and said, we're here, feed me, They tell you to get a job and shut up. Well, David Hogg, who has done everything he can to put himself in the news, who is the vice chair of the DNC, just got slammed for attacking Trump for his Daytona 500 appearances. 24 years old, he's going to tell the rest of us how we ought to do things. The FDA division chief who oversaw banning red dye has resigned. And of course, the bad guy is always Trump. Transportation Chief Buttigieg, former transportation chief, who did nothing for the 4 years he held the job, is attacking the current FAA transportation chief over all the crashes. But the seeds were sown under Buttigieg. A drag show at a Dallas church features a drag pastor who said, "I will kill Trump supporters," and went on to make jokes about fighting Republicans and sacrificing Trump supporters. This Texas church has been known for its LGBTQ activism. It was the Cathedral of Hope in Dallas, Texas. Hosted a performance titled Celebration of the Art of Drag. I quit being a church when they started doing lunatic things like that. White House has clarified that Musk is not a Doge employee. He does not work for the government. He's a senior advisor. Well, North Korea is going to expand its nuclear forces and has criticized the U.S. for what he called the absurd denuclearization plan. Well, architect behind migrant flights to Martha's Vineyard is tapped to head the red state's new immigration board. I mean, Martha's Vineyard people, the wealthy, the elite, ranted and raved about being sanctuary locations until somebody took a flight load of undocumented immigrants into Martha's Vineyard. And they immediately bundled them up and got them out of there, the people of Martha's Vineyard. That flight went from Texas to Martha's Vineyard during the Biden administration. So he's now going to help with the immigrant problem. There was a private contractor named Virtual Systems. Got a $1.5 million contract to fly dozens of mostly Venezuelan migrants from San Antonio to the ritzy Massachusetts island in 2022. At that point in time, illegal crossings along the southern border were surging under the leadership of former President Joe Biden. During 2022 alone, more than 2 million people. But as long as he was in his mansions or on vacation, which he spent a lot of time on, he wasn't concerned about the crime and everything else that went on. Alrighty. Well, just one note. If you happen to go by a thrift shop, check out the books. At one thrift shop in Wyoming, they found a large book that covered crimes from 1904. Makes interesting reading. It was a 315-page red leather-bound book. How it wound up being at a thrift shop's anybody's guess. Well, liberals took yesterday to be not my president's day. They don't seem to understand that these billions of dollars are being shoveled out the door as fast as they could go, especially from USAID, would be something we should not be proud of. We were paying for circumcisions in Mozambique. You got to wonder who came up with these programs. All right, on that note, we come to the end of today's show. Oh, not the show, but the history segment. We've been talking about ghosts and hauntings and early in this country, there seemed to be an obsession with death. There were resurrection men who would go dig up bodies for anatomical study. At the same time, folks were afraid that ghosts would get out of their graves and walk the world. One of the most infamous ghosts of the 18th century in Britain was one that haunted a location called Cock Lane in London. When William Kent's wife Elizabeth died, her sister Fanny moved into the family home to care for the widower, and as you might guess, the two became lovers and moved to a new house at Cock Lane to live with Mr. and Mrs. Kent. They rented rooms from the Parsons family, and Fanny became pregnant, and right before she was due to give birth, she fell ill and died. Mr. Kent didn't seem to have good luck in picking wives. Well, her spirit didn't rest for long. Daughters of the Parsons family began to hear noises near their bed at night. They heard a scratching as if a cat was hidden in the walls. Of course, it disturbed the family, and soon suspicion fell on the ghost of Fanny, and the legend of Scratching Fanny was born. They devised a system of knocking to communicate with the spirit, and then through that, the Parsons were able to find out that Fanny hadn't died from smallpox, but rather a lethal dose of arsenic given to her by her husband. Well, this so captured the imagination of the population that the great and good of London society began to attend seances to speak to Fanny's ghost. Close examinations of Elizabeth Parsons discovered a piece of wood she used to make the knocking sounds. Kent brought the Parsons family to court for blackening his name, and all were found guilty and forced to pay a fine for the accusations they had made. There was absolutely no proof that he had killed his wife. Well, despite the best efforts of skeptics to debunk ghost sightings, a lot of people, even today, claim to have been visited by those who've died. The 20th century saw both a pinnacle of scientific revolution and terrible mass slaughters of humanity. Discoveries of scientists and theories of philosophers were wholly inadequate in the face of the scale of human suffering. Let's face it, we had 2 world wars and the Holocaust. Ghosts and spiritualism made people feel connected to something outside this world of horror. The 20th century began with British newspapers still regularly reporting on ghostly apparitions. One case from 1904 saw a manager of a Richmond inn bedeviled by a nightly visitor. Every night he'd be awoken by unearthly sounds and lights shining in his face. The ghost is a long, luminous figure dressed in some flimsy white and blue material, the manager said. He took a somewhat imperialistic attitude to these intrusions. He said, if I see it again, I'm going to shoot at it. Well, the domestic ghost seemed to be dying out in the first decades of the 20th century. Shock of the First World War that saw a renewed interest in spiritual matters. Every village across Europe suffered heavy losses in their young men. Bereft families wanted to know their loved ones were at peace. Mediums and spiritualists are once again in vogue. In fact, in America, the Ouija board became a popular way to check up on soldiers fighting on another continent. Soldiers found themselves faced with death every day and reported seeing many strange specters in the trenches. Some popular visions, such as the Angels of Mons, which was a ghostly battalion of archers fighting on the side of the British, regularly reported to folks at home. Others are private visitations recorded in the diaries of those on the front lines. One Canadian soldier, named Will Bird, described being woken up by the ghost of his brother who died 2 years before. He said, Steve grinned as he released my hands and put his hand over my mouth as I started to shout my happiness. And Steve let his brother out of the shelter he'd been slumbering in just as a shell obliterated the spot where he'd been sleeping. Other ghost sightings had less happy endings. One British soldier saw a figure in a blue skirt and bonnet. Realized it was his dead mother. He said, I believe she's come for me. Well, at that moment, a burst of shrapnel killed him. The Second World War also left terrible spiritual scars in many places that have spawned a lot of ghostly legends. A lot of pilots report seeing unusual planes during the war, and even as late as 2015 in Derbyshire, people have spotted Second World War planes crossing the sky, often silently. Planes of that era made a deafening roar. The Dominican Hill Retreat in the Philippines became the headquarters of a Japanese army unit who committed horrific crimes within its walls. It's probably unsurprising it's gained a reputation for paranormal activity. Well, far from debunking ghostly beliefs, 20th and 21st century technology has been used to fuel the activities of mediums and ghost hunters. The 20th century has seen the application of science to the study of ghosts as never before. Spirit photography had begun in the Victorian era and allowed ghosts to be seen by many more people than ever before. Ectoplasm spooling out of mediums' mouths as they communicated with the dead became popular images of spiritualism. And this, even when some cases were unmasked as frauds, more sophisticated methods of capturing ghosts were developed. Sound recordings allowed ghosts a new way to manifest by simply turning a tape recorder on while speaking to a ghost. Some folks believe the ghost can imprint its answers on the tape and even become audible. It's known as electronic voice phenomena. Often hard to interpret, but are held by some to be convincing evidence that there's something there. From tape recorders to infrared cameras and electronic field sensors, the kit of the modern ghost hunter, more complex than ever. 21st century seemed to show no lessening in the fascination with ghosts. Television shows where ghost hunters try to track down supernatural activity remain perennial popular. The fact that everybody with a mobile phone carries a high-definition camera in their pocket hadn't brought about a surge of ghostly photographs. And frankly, today, if ghosts are seen at all in pictures, it tends to be a glowing orb that skeptics say are nothing other than flashes reflected off motes of dust in the air. It's also never been easier for an image to be faked using computer programs that are easy to use and, frankly, ubiquitous. The camera may never lie, but people with editing software do. All the possible fakery. It's no surprise that many ghost encounters today are reported as the feeling of presences around a person. Maybe the greatest surprise for those who study ghost lore is the level of commodification that ghosts have undergone in the 20th and 21st century. While earlier tales of ghosts were mostly of the scariest sort, a modern ghost story can be anything from comical to romantic. 1990 film Ghost introduced the public at large to the notion of pottery throwing and even loving spooks. Casper the Friendly Ghost had already turned the ghost into a child-friendly figure. Dead celebrities may reappear after their death as reanimated images. Dead singers can strut and perform on stage as holographic ghosts. And scientists have tried to impress on the public the irrationality of believing in ghosts, as have professional debunkers like James Randi, seeming to little effect. 2018 poll in the U.S. found 60% of those sampled thought that they had seen a ghost. The amount of explanations involving neurobiology or ideas of resonating low-frequency sounds will convince a person that they haven't seen a ghost. And though it's easy to laugh at those in the past who so readily believed in specters and ghouls, it's obvious humanity is just not ready to give up the very idea of boards of a ghost yet. Let's look at the moment for the Ouija board, which began as a game, but has been terrifying generations of teenagers ever since. One of the most recognizable ways of contacting the dead might be the Ouija board. It was introduced to the public in 1891. Originally, it was called the Wonderful Talking Board. Originally viewed as a simple parlor game offering never-failing amusement and recreation for all classes. First advertisement hinted at its later role in spiritualism, describing it as apparently forming the link which unites the known from the unknown, the material from the immaterial. Well, the Ouija board is simply a flat board printed with the alphabet, numbers 0 to 9, yes, no, and goodbye. The action comes from participants putting a finger loosely on a movable heart-shaped piece called the planchette. Questions are asked to the board, and by moving the planchette, the answers are revealed. And the effects can be uncanny. No one person may be directing the movement of the planchette, but it can seem to race across the board. Scientifically minded have suggested the movement can be explained by ideomotor response, unconscious movements, as it were. Indeed, the original sellers of the Ouija board offered no explanation for its action. Only in the First World War in the 1920s was the Ouija board turned into a method of communicating with the dead. And there's been a lot of information that none of the participants had previously known. I got involved with a group that used the Ouija board when I was in college the first time. And some of the information that turned up through the Ouija board would absolutely blow your mind. Well, let's look at the Orthodox Russian beliefs for a moment. Redonista, the day of rejoicing, also known as the day of reckoning. Orthodox Russians commemorate those who passed away with food and gifts and ceremony. It's a Redonitsa is a Russian Orthodox commemoration of the dead that falls, depending on the particular country in which it's being celebrated, on the second Monday or Tuesday of Pascha, or Easter. Feast was moved to the Tuesday in some areas, so priests who are observing Easter fast on the Monday could still participate in this pre-Christian event. And in the pre-Christian era, families visited the resting places of their departed ancestors and held feasts at the graveside. Most people converted to Christianity. The tradition continued within the Russian Orthodox Church is Redonitsa, or Day of Rejoicing, which celebrations are held not only for the dead, but to mark the resurrection of Jesus. As the young dance and celebrate the coming of spring in Russian Orthodox graveyards and cemeteries, the festival begins. Mothers and wives who have lost children and husbands join children who have lost their parents to perform ritual lamentations. And once these are concluded, food from Paschal feast are brought to the gravesides, and families gather together to enjoy the banquet. Kaliva, a dish of boiled wheat, is traditionally served to honor the dead in the belief that the wheat represents those who died but may yet be resurrected, just as a grain of wheat grows from the soil. A mixture of mead and honey is poured over the grave as an offering to those who rest there, and the atmosphere is one of great revelry. Alcohol is consumed in generous amounts, as you might guess. With the focus of Redonitsa not on mourning, but on resurrection and hope. And once the feast is concluded, the remains are left at the graves for the poor, while celebrants return home to leave more food on the table overnight in case some spirits are still hungry. Also common during Redonitsa is a tradition of married people giving gifts to their in-laws in the belief that this will spread joy throughout every household for the year ahead. And it also marks the start of the marriage season. The wedding's forbidden during Pascha. It's the first opportunity since Lent for marriages to take place, which further adds to the spirit of fun and hope. Common sight during Redonitsa are Easter eggs, which are placed on tombs and graves as symbols of resurrection, and hymns are sung as people process through graveyards before alms are handed to the poor. And this feasting and festivity to joy the first resurrection is recreated and celebrated once more. You know, the imagination of people to come up with various reasons to celebrate never ceases to amaze. Let's talk about Thursday of the Dead. On Thursday of the Dead, Arab Christians and Muslims alike share a feast to honor the souls that have departed. Now, what I'm calling Thursday of the Dead actually goes by many names. Variously known as Khamis el-Amwat, Thursday of the Secrets, or even Thursday of the Eggs. It's a feast day shared by Christians and Muslims in the Levant. And although the date of the feast changes annually, it always falls on a Thursday between the respective Easter Sundays of the Eastern Orthodox Christian and Catholic churches. On Thursday of the Dead, the souls that have departed are honored by their living descendants. This is a feast day that's become uniquely associated with women. Just before sunrise, women gather at the tombs of their ancestors to pray and share kalak al-asfar. The seeded or decorated bread cake is popular in the region, also known as the yellow roll. Once their prayers are finished, the celebrants distribute gifts of dried fruit and ka'ak al-ashfar to their families and the poor alike. Children are given ka'ak al-ashfar as well as sweet treats and decorative eggs that have been painted yellow. Observers of Thursday of the Dead have noted that the day serves as much as a celebration and social event for the women concerned as a chance to commemorate the dead. Tradition has been shared between Muslims and Christians since the 12th century, when Saladin encouraged the adoption of Christian customs in traditionally Muslim regions, hoping it would lead to increased religious tolerance and understanding. You know, the fact that mixed faiths share the feast days intended to reflect the belief that those who passed into the next world share a single integrated society. Other death traditions also connected to Thursday of the Dead, as Muslims in mourning visit the tomb of a newly dead loved one to share traditional foods every Thursday following the death until the following Easter. And after this, they are marked by the annual Thursday of the Dead celebrations. In the 21st century, this practice of weekly visits has become less frequent, though Ka'alashvar is still distributed according to the tradition on the Thursday and Monday following a death, well as during Easter. And though it's known by a number of names across the region as the Syrian city of Homs, Thursday of the Dead is widely known as Thursday of Sweetness, referring not only to the sweets distributed to women by women to children, but also buying or making them beforehand. It's amazing how much religion gets involved in almost everything we talk about. Well, let's go to the a Buddhist festival. It's known as the Hungry Ghost Festival. And during this festival, spirits receive offerings intended to send them back to the afterlife without harming the living. The Hungry Ghost Festival is a traditional East Asian celebration. It's held by Buddhists and Taoists on the 14th or 15th of the 7th month, according to the Chinese calendar, traditionally known as the Ghost Month. While the day in which the festival is celebrated is known as Ghost Day, and festivities fill the month. On Ghost Day, it's believed that the entrances to the realms of heaven and hell are thrown open, sending spirits into the world of the living. And as these damned souls swarm out in search of mayhem on earth, celebrants perform rituals that intend to appease them and send them back to where they came from. Central to the festivity is the veneration of the dead, while the living seek to appease the spirits of those who might otherwise cause them harm. They prepare impressive feasts and burn fake money and other offerings, which they believe will then become available in the afterlife, making the souls' eternities a little easier. Lanterns and candles are lit in the street, which are intended to guide the spirits back to their own realms. Feasting is an important part of the festival, of course, and food's also left outside so passing ghosts can eat at leisure should they wish. It's frowned upon to clear away offerings from the streets during the festival, while people are refrained from activities such as swimming in case the spirit drowns them. And marriages held during Ghost Month are believed to be destined to fail. At dusk on Ghost Day, photographs of the dead are put out on traditional family tablets alongside plates of specially prepared food. Their descendants then light incense and bow before the offering, seeking blessings from their ancestors. The day closes with a feast at which one seat's left empty so the dead can join their family and dine with them. And on the last day of the month, the gates of hell are closed and barred again, trapping the restless and unredeemed souls inside for another year. Celebrations are held in which more offerings are burned for those in hell, so they'll have money and goods in the afterlife. Monks perform chants to banish any stubborn ghost, while families gather beside at rivers to paint their ancestors' names on the lanterns, and then they float them away on the current. It's a beautiful ritual, and this ritual, they believe, will draw the ghosts whose names are written on the lanterns to follow the tiny lights down the river and away from their living families, which ensures peace for another year. You have to wonder how such events got started. One of the most important festivals in the pagan year was known as Samhain. Now, Halloween has largely replaced it, but Samhain is still one of the most important festivals. It falls on October 31st, the last of the 3 harvest festivals celebrated by modern-day pagans. Also marks the true beginning of winter. It was seen as a Day of the Dead. Several Neolithic tombs were constructed in such a way that the light of sunrise on Samhain would illuminate the interior. And the Christian Hallowtide, held on the same day, may preserve this association with the older feast, as its ringing of church bells is thought to provide comfort to the departed. And on Samhain, the boundaries between the human world and those of the fairies and the dead are thought to grow thin and permeable. The early descriptions of Samhain in Irish literature show it's a time to end farming and warfare and gather families and tribes together to survive the winter. In the cold nights, there was much drinking and tale-telling to pass the time. And it was a time of potential danger, as the fairies would open their mounds, and it was possible for the dead to return from the spirit realm. Samhain was also a time when cattle and other livestock were slaughtered and preserved for winter, and may have been a time that was associated with sacrifices. On Samhain, the fire in the hearth was allowed to burn out while people worked in the fields. That night, bonfires were lit to ward off evil, and fire was taken from these to relight the home fires. And the smoke from the great fires was thought to be protective as well. Sometimes 2 fires were lit, and villagers and livestock would pass between them. And today, bonfires are still lit in celebration of Samhain. Major cities such as Edinburgh see large processions of people carrying flaming torches alongside drums and music. Traditionally, the festivities of Samhain could be accompanied by dressing up and putting on disguises. Boys would sometimes go from house to house to beg wood to be added to the communal fire. To light the way, revelers carved lanterns from turnips and worstles. Easy to see how Samhain influenced the later traditions of Halloween, which many people celebrate today. And for modern pagans, Samhain is both a time to remember the dead and to celebrate. Feasts are often held as a way of offering hospitality to the deceased. And you may want to bake a batch of soul cakes to offer to the poor. It's also a time to introduce newborns to the community. And Samhain can, in fact, be a popular moment to reflect on things that have ended in the past year, as well as the hopes will come in the future. And on that note, we come to the end of today's show. We've run out of time. So until tomorrow, this is Ken Hudnall for the Ken Hudnall Show, saying have a truly great evening. And make sure you lock the doors and close the curtains. You don't know what's going to be wandering around.